It's late, and you're not resting. You're working on it in your head, not the whole thing. One piece of it. The message you'll send tomorrow. The angle you haven't tried yet. The exact way you'll bring it up if they say that thing again. Your body is in bed. The rest of you is at a desk somewhere, running the same problem for the 9th or 10th time today. You have been pushing this particular thing for a long time. Years, probably. And there is something you don't say out loud to anyone. It isn't moving. You've done the math. You have watched the same effort produce the same result enough times to see the shape of it. Some clear part of you ran the numbers a long time ago and came back with an answer you didn't want, and you filed it away and kept going, because stopping would make it final. That's the real reason underneath the good ones. As long as you're still pushing, it isn't over yet. The pushing is the last thing standing between you and having to accept something you are not ready to accept. So you get up early, you rebuild the plan, you find one more angle, and you tell yourself, this is what people mean when they say, don't give up. And you have tried to rest. That's the part that unsettles you once you stop avoiding it. You took the weekend, you took the evening, the walk, the day off you'd earned twice over. And it didn't take. You sat down and the problem sat down next to you. Somewhere along the way, rest stopped working on you and you couldn't say when it happened or what changed. Then there's the part that has never made any sense to you. You look around and there are people getting the thing you're grinding for with a fraction of what you spend on it. Not smarter than you, not better than you, just unclenched. Things seem to arrive for them, and you have spent years quietly trying to work out what they know that you don't. And you never found it, because it was never information. What you are doing has a name, and everyone around you calls it discipline. It isn't discipline. The oldest account we have of this state doesn't call it discipline, and it doesn't call it weakness either. It describes it as something that was put in you, a way of moving through the world that you did not invent and were never asked about. And the reason nobody has ever told you that is simple. Almost everyone who could tell you is doing it too. Somebody complimented you for this once, and you have been paying for it ever since. They called it grit, or drive, or said you were just not the type to quit, and you kept it because it was one of the few things anyone ever admired out loud. Every single word available for what you do is a word of praise, which is exactly why it has never been examined. A thing that arrives dressed as your best quality doesn't get investigated. Nobody audits the part of themselves that gets applauded. So take the evidence you already have and strip the compliment off it. If this were discipline, it would finish things. Disciplined people also stop. They close the laptop, they sleep, they let the thing sit overnight and come back to it in the morning. What you do doesn't close. It follows you into the shower, into the car, into the middle of a conversation with someone you love who can tell you're not really there. Focus would narrow. Yours widens. Every time you push, 3 more variables appear that also need managing. And strength costs less over time, not more. Strength builds. This drains. You have more experience than you have ever had and less capacity than you had at 25. And you have been calling that maturity. The exhaustion is not the price you pay for having standards, chosen ones. It's a symptom. It has been reporting the same thing for years, and you filed it under character, which leaves a question you have never asked in this order. Why is pushing harder the only tool you own? Not your best one, your only one. You reach for it at work. You reach for it with the people closest to you. You reach for it when you pray, when you try to become a better person, when you want something to change and cannot make it move. One move applied to everything. Nobody is born with one move. So who put it in your hand? The answer is written down, and it is older than the church that buried it. There is a text called the Gospel of Truth, recovered from the sand at Nag Hammadi, and in the middle of it, there is a passage describing what it's like to be a person who hasn't woken up yet. It doesn't describe sin. It doesn't describe weakness. It describes this: They are as though sunk in sleep, and they find themselves in disturbing dreams. Either they are fleeing, or they are powerless to flee as they pursue, or they are dealing blows in a battle, or they are themselves receiving blows. Notice what every single one of those images has in common. Running, chasing, striking, being struck. Maximum exertion in every direction, urgent, exhausting, and not one of them arrives anywhere. That is not a description of a lazy person. That is a description of someone working extremely hard inside a situation where the working does nothing. And the text does not call that a moral failure. It calls it a dream. You are not being accused of anything there. You are being told you are asleep, and that everything you have been doing with such effort is the flailing of a body that thinks it's running. So where did that state come from? Not the exhaustion, the mode, the reaching, the pushing, the grip. The tradition answers that too, and the answer is the founding story of the entire cosmology. Before this world existed, there was Sophia, wisdom, one of the powers of the fullness, and she wanted to bring something into being, not out of malice, out of urgency. She reached to create on her own, without her partner, without the consent of the fullness she belonged to. She could not wait for it, so she forced it. And what came out of that act was not what she intended. What came out was Yaldabaoth, the builder, and after him, this entire world. Understand the weight of that. In the oldest account, the origin of everything wrong with this place is not a sin, not a fruit, not disobedience. It is one act of forcing something that was not ready. Forcing was never your virtue. It is his signature, and he has never done anything else since. Watch how the texts describe him. He builds, he constructs, he arranges, he sets powers over powers, he issues commands. And the one sentence he says with total confidence, the line the accounts put in his mouth again and again, is this: I am God, and there is no other beside me. That is a being holding something shut with both hands. Everything he has, he made and defends. Nothing arrives to him. Nothing overflows out of him. He builds because building is the only thing available to something that cannot pour. Now set the monad beside that. The fullness above does not construct. The texts describe it pouring out, not deciding, not managing, not straining. What comes from it comes the way light comes off a fire without the fire trying. Two modes, chosen ones. One overflows, one forces. And here is the part that closes the circle. You did not pick up his by choosing it. A world built by a thing that only knows how to construct is going to teach construction to everyone born inside it. You were taught to push before you could talk. You were rewarded for pushing at 5 years old, and again at 12, and again in every job you have ever held. The mode was installed the way an accent is installed, early, invisibly, and by everybody at once. So you have been running his method every day, on everything you care about, while calling it your best quality, which is why the tiredness never made sense to you. You were never lazy, and you were never weak. You were handed one tool at an age too early to refuse it, and told that using it harder was what good people do. Of course it drains you. It was built by something that has never once been at rest. But if pushing is his method, and it is the only method you were ever shown, then there is an obvious question sitting underneath all of this. What is the other one? The other one is going to sound like nothing at all when you first hear it. And that reaction is worth noticing because it's his mode judging the alternative. Before anything else, understand what this is not. This is not quitting. It is not walking away from your work, your responsibilities, your treatment, or the people depending on you. Nobody in these texts ever taught passivity, and if you hear one in this, you are hearing the wrong thing. You will keep acting. What stops is something else. There's a difference between acting and forcing, and almost nobody separates them. because they feel identical from the inside. Acting is what the thing actually requires. The email gets written and sent. The call gets made. The work gets done at the level the work genuinely needs. Forcing is everything you pile on top of that out of fear. The rereading. The 3 redrafts of a message that was fine after the first. Checking whether they replied. Then checking again 11 minutes later. The conversation you rehearse with someone who is not in the room. The backup plan built at 2 a.m. that you will never use, constructed purely so that some part of you can feel like it did something with the fear. Count it in your own week sometime. Not to judge yourself, just count. Most people are startled by how little of it was the thing itself and how much of it was the weight they carried around the thing. So try this for 7 days. It costs you nothing except the surplus. Pick the one thing you push hardest. No need to search for it. It's the thing that was in your head last night. For 7 days, give it exactly what it requires and not one thing more. Do the work. Send the message once. Make the call. And then refuse everything that comes after. The checking, the rewriting, the rehearsal, the second guessing, the strategizing in bed. When your hand reaches for the phone to check, that is the surplus, not the action. Leave it. You are not neglecting it. You are giving it precisely what it needs and withdrawing what was never helping it in the first place. And the 4th or 5th day, expect the mode to defend itself, because it always does. It will tell you that you are being careless. It will show you exactly how this falls apart if you stop watching it. That feeling, the specific dread of not gripping something, is not intuition, chosen ones. It is what the grip feels like when you set it down. Then watch what moves. Not because the universe rewards surrender, and not because letting go is magic. Because for the first time in years, there is space around the thing, and the monad does not push its way into a life that is already full of pushing. It arrives the way light arrives in a room where somebody finally opened the shutters. Nothing was constructed. Something was simply no longer in the way. The 7 days are mine. The 2 modes are theirs. One that builds and defends, one that overflows. And in every account where the monad is described, it is never once described building. And a practice that costs nothing, requires nobody, and works better the less you do should be the most famous teaching in the world. So why were you raised to believe the opposite? Forcing was never your virtue. It is his signature. So how did it end up at the top of everyone's list of virtues? What got lost first was the destination. In those buried texts, the end state of the whole path is not achievement, and it is not reward. It is rest. Not rest as a break between efforts. Rest as the thing itself, the condition of someone who has stopped needing to hold the world together. Now consider the most quoted line about effort in the English language. God helps those who help themselves. Ask almost anyone where that comes from, and they will tell you it's in the Bible. It isn't. Not one verse, not one letter, nowhere in either testament. It's older than Christianity. The line comes down from pagan antiquity. The gods help those who help themselves. A proverb about self-reliance that predates the Gospels by centuries. It was picked up, printed in an almanac in the 1700s by a man selling practical advice, and it slipped into the culture, wearing Scripture's clothes so convincingly that people now quote it back to grieving friends as though God had said it. That single sentence does more work than any doctrine ever written. It makes effort the condition of divine help. It puts your striving in front of the source as the toll you pay to be noticed. And quietly, underneath, it makes rest suspicious. Because a person resting is a person not helping themselves. And therefore a person God is presumably not helping either. That is how the builder's mode became holiness. A person who believes striving is virtue never stops. Not on Sunday, not on vacation, not while their children are talking to them. And a person who never stops producing. Ask who that arrangement serves. Not you. You are the one being spent by it. A world assembled by something that only knows how to build needs a population of builders, and the most efficient way to get one is not force. It's to make building feel like goodness. You were not lied to about God, chosen ones. You were handed a work ethic and told it was faith. And if the single most exhausting habit in your life could be dressed up as a virtue that thoroughly, the obvious question is what else in you got renamed the same way. That is what the Archon Codex maps out. What was buried, what was relabeled, and what each of those pieces was actually for. It's available now, link in the description below, which leaves the word those texts actually use for where all of this was supposed to end. The word is anapausis, rest, not a pause between efforts, not the weekend. In those texts, it is the destination, the state of a person who has come to know what they are and who no longer needs to hold anything together. It is the only condition in which the monad has ever been described as reachable. The whole path ends there, not in victory, in the hands opening, which means that in the oldest version of this, you were never supposed to win. You were supposed to stop. Picture the sleeper from that buried text again, fleeing, chasing, throwing punches, taking them. Ask what waking up would actually look like for him. It would not look like winning the fight. There is no version where he lands the final blow and the dream resolves. Waking up means the fight was never happening, and the body that was so exhausted from swinging can finally lie still. That is the whole teaching. Not effort rewarded, effort revealed. So the thing you were pushing at 11 o'clock last night is still going to be there tomorrow. Nothing about it changes tonight. What changes is that you have both hands on it, and you are about to find out that it never needed both. That most of what you called responsibility was fear wearing gloves, and the part that was genuinely yours to do takes a fraction of what you've been spending. Chosen ones, you were never lazy, and you were never behind. You were asleep, working very hard, inside a dream built by something that has never rested in its existence and cannot imagine anyone doing it. The monad has never once asked you for effort. It was never withheld from you either. It was only drowned out. You can stop now. Set it down and see what is still standing in the morning. If this reached you, say so. Comment, I set it down.